Yitzi, I have a question for you.
Great. Leila Seder is a great time to ask questions.
So this year, there's no Parsha this week. We have Leila Seder. We have first day Pesach on Shabbos. And I thought we'd take this opportunity to talk about Leila Seder, and more specifically about the main topic of Leila Seder. We know that Leila Seder is all about talking. Pesach is your mouth moving, is talking about what happened to Am Yisrael, how they left Egypt, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu miraculously saved us from the Egyptians, took us out of Egypt and brought us to Eretz Yisrael. But more than that, there's a very big emphasis on Leila Seder, on asking questions. And we know there's a lot of things that we do during Leila Seder in order to get the kids, to get the children to ask questions, meaning it's not only about telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, but it's about getting the people involved to ask questions. Many things we change around. We have more questions in the Haggadah with the famous Manishtana, which is printed in the Haggadah, that we have to say. And even more so, the Braita in Masechet Pesachim says that if a person is by himself for Pesach, they have to ask themselves questions on Leila Seder, sitting there asking a question and answering themselves. So what is this great emphasis on asking questions? Why is it so important? Why in Judaism do we like to ask questions? Why is it such a good thing? Is it such a good thing to ask questions all the time?
Well, today it's like a common thing to say, yeah, you should question everything. People believe they need to educate their kids to question everything, to not accept everything. But I don't think that that's what that means. I think there's a big difference between the concept of questioning everything and what we're talking about here about lishol she'elot, about asking. I think asking and questioning are two totally different things. And I think the essence of asking questions is the concept of recognizing that there's something that I don't know. There's something that I need. There's something that I'm missing and I'm lacking. And the basis of any learning, of learning anything in life, and not only in Torah, is recognizing first that you don't know. If you take a glass of water and it's filled with water and you pour the water in, no matter how much water you're going to pour, it's just going to all go outside. Nothing's going to enter the cup. Until the cup is empty, or in our case, recognizes that it's empty, or that there's room, that it needs, that it has a question, that there's room for new knowledge, only then can you pour in the new knowledge. If you ever try to pour that in, you'll tell the stories of Pesach, you'll teach. Nobody's going to be actually taking anything in. The essence of truly teaching something starts with the other side, first of all, recognizing that they need something, that they're lacking and they need to learn and they want to learn. That curiosity, that understanding that there's something out there that I want to learn, that I want to take in, is the basis of learning. And maybe that also connects to the word lishol, because we know the word lishol in Hebrew, and even in the context of the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the concept of lishol is to borrow something, is to ask from your neighbor, can I borrow your hammer? Now, it's not about asking if he has a hammer. The lishol is the moment that you actually take that hammer from him. Meaning, lishol is not just throwing a question out, it's actually searching for that answer. It's actually taking something, being able to accept something from someone else, from the people around you, from the world around you. Taking that new stuff in is lishol, is you're bringing that new stuff in. That's the essence of learning. And I think there's a huge difference between that and the concept of questioning everything. And the difference is where you are. Are you looking down from above at something and you're questioning it, which means you don't accept anything? When you're asking that question, you're basically doubting everything. You're saying there's no truth in what you're looking at. You're on top and you're looking down at it. What we're talking about here is something entirely different. It's the exact opposite. It's the concept of you looking up and saying, there's so much I still don't know. I'm asking questions because I want to learn, because I'm showing you I don't know this and I don't know that, and I want to know this and I want to know that. It's the totally flip side. If the essence of questioning something is exactly saying, I don't necessarily need what you're showing me, I'm doubting if that's really relevant or true or for me, the essence of lishol she'elot is the opposite. I do need to learn. I do want to learn. There's things that I don't know. There's things that are beyond me that I just want to grab as much as I could of. And maybe this can explain another thing in Leila Seder, because as you said, regardless of if there are children there asking me, questions need to be asked. Even if I'm alone, I need to ask questions. Definitely if I'm with, other adults, we have to ask questions. So why is the Seder so focused on children? We all need to ask questions, then they'll just join in and ask questions with us. Why do we need to make the children ask? Why is it all about children asking? And there are many reasons for this, but I think based on what we're saying now, there's another point here. Maybe this is one thing we really need to learn from children. We need to learn from children how to truly ask, how to lish'ol she'elot. Lish'ol she'elot in a way that's not questioning and doubting everything. Lish'ol she'elot in a way that we're asking and wanting to learn and wanting to take in. A child is filled with curiosity. A child from the day he's born is searching, is looking around, is trying to take in as much. The child, when he asks a question, he assumes that there's an answer out there that he just needs to learn. When an adult asks questions, he's many times assuming that he knows it all, and he's just questioning to show that there's no truth, that he's smarter than everything else. When we want to ask questions, even though sometimes we don't have children around, we need to ask questions like children. We need to look at how children ask questions, and that's our approach, and that's how we need to learn, and that's how we need to sit at Leila Seder. We're not showing how smart we are, as the Haggadah says, Afilu kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevonim, kulanu yodim ta Torah, מצווה עלינו לספר ביציאת מצרים. Telling stories seems something irrelevant to someone who, knows it all and understands it all. But anyone who has a child knows that their child can ask them to read that same story again. And you think, but I just read it yesterday. But still, they want to hear it again. They want to hear because it's a story, and they want to take it more in and experience it again. And they feel there's still more they can experience from it. That's how we need to approach Leila Seder. Not questioning, but asking, wanting to learn, wanting to grow with that same endless curiosity that children have.
Very true, very true. I think that distinction that you're making between questioning and asking questions is so important to understand when you approach a subject to be learned, when you approach things and ideas that you ask questions about, because many times, like you were saying, people ask questions not in order to get an answer. They're asking questions because they want to show that they have questions. They want to show how smart they are. They want to show that they know better, and therefore they're not even interested in the answers. And the ABCs of asking a question is being open to get the answer. And one of the more important things is understanding that sometimes the answer comes right away, and sometimes you can answer the question right away. Sometimes it takes a long time until you can figure out an answer. Sometimes you get an answer right away, and then later on you don't like it and you have to look for a new answer. Sometimes you don't get an answer now and you only get it later on in life. There's many times where a question is being asked and the answer could come on later, could come on in a different time. And maybe this is also why we have the 4 different sons in the Haggadah. We know we call them Chacham, Rasha, Tam, Sheno, Lishol. We give them different pictures. We give them different characteristics to each one of them. But when you look at the Torah, really each one of them starts with a question. Besides the last one, the 4th one, which doesn't ask a question. Because sometimes really you have a question which you get an answer right away. Sometimes you have a question many years later and you're still asking that question and looking for an answer. And sometimes you don't even understand that you have a question to be answered, and you don't really understand how to ask a question in order to begin with, but you know that something's bothering you inside and you need to answer it. And we talked about this in the past about the answer, a tshuva that you get for a question, which in Hebrew also means repentance, tshuva, and the similarity between the two concepts. And really the idea that when you have a question, you are lacking something from yourself, like you were saying. You're looking to fill in a gap that you have in you, and you have to fill it in. And once you fill it in, that's when you climb a level and go a little bit higher. That's when you get closer, lashuv, back to where you want to be, back to where you're supposed to be. And also in Hebrew, interestingly enough, you mentioned that asking a question, she'ela, is just like to borrow something, lishor something. There's a 3rd word in Hebrew which has the same shows, which is she'ol, which is the depth, which is the lowest place on earth. That again, having a question resembles that idea that you are in a deep place, you are in a low place, and what you are looking for is to climb out of that place. And obviously, if you're not looking to climb out of that place, you will stay down there, and nothing other people do will help you get out of that place. You need to want to climb out of that place, and you need to want to get that answer in order to get closer back to where you want to be, in order to lashuv b'tshuva. And maybe this idea of she'elot and tshuvot, of questions and answers, is such an important idea in Judaism, in our way of life, in our tradition. As we know also the Talmud, the Gemara is built out of questions and answers on top of each other, because this is fundamental to getting closer. Every question you ask might look like a step you're taking backwards, but then once you get the answer, it's the two steps that take you forward. That's the right way to build your understanding in issues and things. That's the right way in order to develop yourself, to develop your thinking, to develop your machshava. And really, this is why Leila Seder, the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the night of the redemption, the night that starts everything for Am Yisrael, is so crucial to start with questions, to have the younger generation ask questions. And like we were saying, if you don't have somebody with you, you have to ask yourself the questions and then also answer yourself, because that's the process. That's how the wheel turns around. That's how you accelerate the movement with questions and answers in order to build the machshava, in order to build your personality, in order to build your identity of who you are, which again, this is the basis of Leila Seder, reminding us who we are, what we are about, what our history is about, and where we are headed to in the future, Bezrat Hashem.
You know, maybe this explains another thing. In the Haggadah you mentioned, we have the 4 sons, and the last one is the she'eino yodea lishol. And what do we say about the she'eino yodea lishol? At ptach lo. You have to open him up. And the pasuk brought is והגדת לבנך. Now, והגדת לבנך is the Haggadah. Everything we're doing this night is והגדת לבנך. So it seems that the entire Haggadah is actually a response to the she'eino yodea lishol, this one who doesn't know how to ask. And many times we focus on every one of the other sons, but maybe the real story, the most important son of all, and we all have that in us. And this is our biggest problem, is the she'eino yodea lishol. Because our biggest barrier in growth is not the fact that we haven't succeeded in learning this or we haven't done that. Our biggest problem is that we're not even trying, that we're not even searching, that we don't even realize that there's something missing that we need. And today, when we're loaded with information, we just the information just is there. It surrounds us. It never goes inside because we're not looking. And the entire Haggadah is really for all of us who at some level are also a she'eino yodea lishol. We lost that ability to ask, to be curious, to truly realize that there's things that we don't know, that we want to understand, that there's a truth out there that we want to bring in, that there's a truth out there that we want to accept. And that ability to recognize that we have questions is our biggest barrier in actually learning. And the reason is not because we don't have questions. As the Haggadah says, at ptach lo, open him up. What does it mean, open him up? It doesn't say teach him how to ask questions. No, he has questions. They're just buried inside. He's closed. He doesn't want to accept anything from the outside. It's that same cup that's not accepting water, but it's not accepting water because it's actually full. It's not accepting because it's closed, and it's not ready to accept from anything on the outside. It questions everything on the outside, as we said. It doesn't accept anything on the outside. You need to open it up, make it recognize it's okay. There are things that you don't know and you want to learn, and we all have questions. Children, adults, those questions will help us grow, will help us learn if we truly use them as a drive to search and continue our search to constantly grow and constantly learn. That, I think, is the essence of the entire Haggadah, and therefore, in a certain sense, that she'eino yodea lishol is the most important son of all. We all have all of the sons in us, a little bit of a chacham, a little bit of a rasha, but the she'eino yodea lishol today is probably what we have most of and what we most need to work on. And the Haggadah and all of Leila Seder seems to be speaking more than anyone else to that she'eino yodea lishol side of us.
Beautiful, exactly. And as we said many times on this channel, being in Baal Emunah, being a person of Emunah, walking the path of Emunah in life means you have a lot of questions and you search for answers. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't, sometimes you get them later on in life. It's okay, but you continue walking no matter what. Really, that's the story of Leila Seder. That's the story of our nation, of our belief. And like you were saying, this is what brings us from the she'eino yodea lishol into the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim on Leila Seder night. And we'll have to end here, but there are many more videos you can watch for Leila Seder, because throughout Sefer Shemot, we discussed many things about Yetziat Mitzrayim. We'll link a couple of them at the end of this video, but you can go onto the channel and look for the other videos for Parshat Shemot, Va'era Bo Beshalach, and so many other videos we have over there. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to comment below, like the video, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.
Chag Geula Sameach, Shabbat Shalom, and in Mirz Hashem, we'll see the great redemption very soon for all of Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael. For more Talking Torah videos on different topics, check out our YouTube channel.